Maya stood as still as she could, but her mind was racing. The longer she waited, the more she realized something didn't feel right more than just how she was being treated. Her eyes followed Linda as she moved around the lobby, talking quietly to a tall man in a dark suit who had just walked in. Maya didn't recognize him at first, but something about him made her pay attention. He didn't seem like a regular customer. He had this calm but serious look, and Linda was clearly trying to impress him. She handed him a manila folder, her voice low, her body language nervous. Maya couldn't hear everything, but she caught a few words. Documents, timing, and something that sounded like keep this quiet. The man nodded and gave a half smile as he opened the folder and flipped through the pages. Maya leaned forward a little, careful not to draw attention, but curious. The folder had the word confidential written on it in bold letters. It wasn't a normal file. Whatever was in there wasn't meant to be public. Maya had seen that word before, printed across reports her mom sometimes brought home from work. Then it hit her. She had heard that man's name before, Ethan Reyes. Her mom had mentioned him during dinner one night. CEO of a rival financial firm, someone known for playing dirty in business, and now here he was inside her mom's own bank, being handed sensitive files by the manager who had just treated her like she didn't belong. Something changed in Maya in that moment. She realized this wasn't just about her. Linda wasn't just being rude, she was hiding something bigger, and Maya had seen enough to know it wasn't good. She slowly reached into her bag and pulled out her small notebook. It was something she always kept with her for school, filled with ideas and reminders. Now, it would be something else. She began writing quickly but carefully who she saw, what she heard, the time, the names, the details. Every second she stood in that corner, Maya was no longer just a quiet girl being ignored. She was watching, and now she was recording everything. Just when Maya thought she couldn't take another minute of standing there, the front doors of the bank opened. Her heart jumped. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. She could feel it. That calm, steady energy, that quiet strength. Her mother, Olivia Brooks, had walked in. The room seemed to shift the second Olivia entered. She wasn't loud or dramatic. She didn't need to be. She walked with purpose, her heels clicking gently against the marble, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on Maya. The moment they did, everything else faded. Olivia's face tightened, not with panic, but with controlled anger. She walked straight over to her daughter, ignoring the confused looks from the staff. "Maya," she said softly, brushing a hand across her shoulder. "Are you all right?" Maya nodded, but her voice was shaky. "I'm okay, but there's something you should know." Still holding her folder, Maya reached into her bag and pulled out her notebook. She handed it to her mom. Without a word, Olivia opened it and began reading, her eyes moving quickly across the pages. As she read, her jaw tightened, but she didn't interrupt. When she finished, she looked up, calm but serious, and turned to face the counter. Linda had finally noticed who had arrived. She stepped forward, that same fake smile returning. "Miss Brooks," she said, to polite all of a sudden. "I wasn't expecting you." But Olivia didn't smile back. She didn't even blink. "We'll talk in a moment," she said firmly. "Right now, I want an explanation for why my daughter has been standing here for over an hour, alone, without her documents, without a phone, and without a single ounce of respect." The entire room went quiet. The other customers, the tellers, even the security guard, all frozen. Linda opened her mouth to speak, but stopped when Olivia's eyes locked on hers. No yelling, no drama, just that sharp, direct look that told everyone in the room this wasn't going to be brushed aside. Not today, not this time. Olivia didn't waste time. She turned toward Linda, notebook still in hand, and her voice was steady but firm. "This isn't just about how my daughter was treated," she said. "It's about what you've been doing behind this desk." Linda's face went pale. She glanced at the notebook, then at the other staff, as if hoping someone would step in and defend her. No one did. Olivia laid the notebook on the counter and flipped to a page. "My daughter may be young, but she's not blind. She saw you hand a confidential folder to Ethan Reyes. She heard enough to know it wasn't a regular transaction." She paused just long enough to let the words sink in. "You're not just rude, you're working with one of my company's biggest competitors, and now we have it all written down." Linda tried to speak. "That's a misunderstanding," but Olivia raised a hand, cutting her off. "No, what you did goes far beyond bad service. You've put this bank, your job, at serious risk." Then, calmly, she turned to the nearest teller. "Please call corporate security. Miss Linda Jenkins is to be removed from this branch." Immediately, the room was dead silent. Every employee had stopped what they were doing. Customers had turned their heads. No one moved until the guard stepped forward. The same guard who had been told to keep an eye on Maya now walked across the floor and stood beside Linda. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said quietly, his eyes on Olivia. "You're not the one who should be apologizing," Olivia replied. As Linda was escorted out, her heels echoing across the marble floor, Maya watched with wide eyes. Her hands were still holding the folder she had carried in hours ago, but now she felt something else inside her, something solid. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't fought back in anger, but she had still been heard, and now the person who tried to make her feel small was the one walking out with her head down. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The bank launched a full investigation into Linda's actions, and it didn't take long to uncover what Olivia had suspected. She had been secretly leaking internal documents to a competing firm for months. But what shocked the board even more was how she treated customers, especially young ones and people of color. Maya's notes became a key part of the report. Her detailed observations, written with care and clarity, showed patterns of bias that no one had bothered to notice before. The company made swift changes. Leadership at the branch was replaced, and every employee was required to complete new training focused on fairness, respect, and accountability. More importantly, Olivia pushed for something bigger: new rules that protected young clients like Maya from being mistreated or ignored, no matter who they were or where they came from. As for Maya, her life shifted too. News of what happened at the bank reached her school. Teachers praised her not just for staying calm, but for taking action. She was invited to speak to other students about her experience. Standing at the front of the auditorium, Maya looked out at rows of kids her age, some nervous, some curious, and shared what she had gone through. She told them how it felt to be treated unfairly and how she used what she saw and heard to make a difference. She didn't pretend to have all the answers, but she did say something that stuck with everyone in the room. Sometimes being quiet doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you're watching, and when the time is right, you speak. That day, she wasn't just a student with a scholarship. She was a voice people listened to. Months later, Maya walked back into that same bank branch, this time with her mom beside her. The staff smiled. They greeted her by name. A new manager walked over, handed her a thank you letter from the company, and told her how her story helped change things for the better. Maya didn't need an award or applause. Just being treated with respect was enough. As she stood there, check in hand once again, she looked around and saw a place that finally felt different. Not perfect, but better. And it started with one moment, one notebook, and one girl who refused to be silent. It was a bright Monday morning when 14-year-old Maya Brooks stepped into the tall glass doors of Crest Hill Private Bank. She wore her school uniform, neat blazer, pleated skirt, and simple flats with pride, tucked safely inside her folder, was something she had worked hard for, a $3,000 STEM scholarship check. It wasn't just money to her. It was proof that all those late nights studying, all the group projects, and all the weekends she skipped hanging out with friends had meant something. Today, Maya wasn't just here to put money in an account. She was here to take her first real step toward being independent. The bank was quiet, almost too quiet, the kind of quiet that made her feel like her footsteps were too loud. Her shoes tapped lightly against the shiny marble floor as she walked toward the counter. Everything about the place looked expensive: dark wooden panels on the walls, tall plants in silver pots, and soft music playing somewhere in the background. She noticed the security guard by the door glance her way, not with a smile, but with a look she couldn't quite read. Still, Maya kept her head high. Her mom always told her to walk like she belonged wherever she went. She could have asked her mom to come with her. Olivia Brooks was the CEO of a financial firm that pretty much ran half the banks in the state, including this one. But Maya had said no. She wanted to do this by herself. She had filled out the deposit slip carefully the night before. She had checked her folder 3 times before leaving. She even skipped breakfast just to be early. "I can handle it," she had told her mom, trying to sound confident. Olivia had smiled and said, "I know you can." When Maya reached the counter, she stood up straight and waited for the teller to notice her. A man in his 20s, wearing a name tag that read Alex, finally looked up. He didn't smile. He didn't say hello. He just looked at her, then at the check she slid across the counter. His hand paused in midair for a second, then slowly picked up the paper. As his eyes scanned the amount written on it, $3,000, his brow furrowed slightly. Then, without saying a word, he held the check up to the light. Maya felt her hands tighten around the folder she was still holding. Something in the air shifted. It was small, barely noticeable, but she could feel it. She had been excited when she walked in. Now she wasn't so sure what she was feeling. Something about the way the teller looked at the check, it didn't feel like the start of a regular deposit. And just like that, her simple visit started to feel a lot more complicated. The moment Alex, the teller, held Maya's check up to the light, something shifted. His eyes narrowed just a little, but it was enough. Maya caught it. Then he looked over his shoulder and waved someone over. That someone was the floor manager, Linda. She wore a sharp gray suit and heels that clicked against the floor as she walked over. Her smile was small, tight, and it disappeared the second she saw Maya. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask how she could help. Instead, she went straight for the check and looked at it like it couldn't possibly be real. "For a girl your age?" Linda asked, her voice just loud enough for the people nearby to hear. "Where did you get this?" Maya's face flushed, but she kept her voice calm. "It's my scholarship. I won it through the state science competition." She opened her folder and handed over her student ID and the award letter. Her fingers trembled a little. Linda didn't bother to read the papers. She barely looked at them before passing them back. "We've had some issues with fraud lately," Linda said, her tone stiff. "We'll need to verify this." She turned to Alex and muttered something, too low for Maya to hear clearly. Then, to Maya, she added, "Wait over there until we're done," pointing to a small area near the wall, away from the counters. Maya hesitated. "I just need to call my mom. She's expecting me home soon." Linda didn't even look up. "If you don't have a phone, that's not our problem." Maya's phone was still in her locker at school. She had figured this trip would take no more than 20 minutes. Now she stood by the wall, alone, clutching her folder while the check sat in Alex's hands behind the counter. People walked in and out of the bank, some giving her side glances, others ignoring her completely from behind the counter. Maya could hear Linda whispering to Alex again. "You can't be too careful these days," she said. "We have to keep our standards." Maya felt her stomach sink. She wasn't being treated this way because of a mistake. She hadn't done anything wrong. She had brought her ID, the award letter, and the check. She had followed every rule, but they were still looking at her like she didn't belong. And now, instead of helping her, they were talking about her like she wasn't even in the room. Maya stood quietly in the corner, her folder clutched against her chest, feeling more out of place with every minute that passed. The bank lobby was busy, customers chatting, phones ringing, papers rustling, but to Maya, everything felt distant. It was like she was standing inside a bubble that nobody wanted to step into. She wasn't being helped. She wasn't being spoken to. She was just waiting for someone to treat her like she mattered. As the minutes dragged on, whispers started. The older women near the entrance glanced her way and leaned in to talk. A man in a suit looked at her, then turned to his wife and said something under his breath. Maya couldn't hear their exact words, but their faces said enough. She felt the heat rise in her cheeks, her heart beat faster. She hadn't done anything wrong. Why did it feel like she was on trial? She tried to stay still, just like her mom had taught her. Grace under pressure, her mom would say, but it was getting harder. The stares, the long wait, the growing sense that she was being watched like she didn't belong here, it all started piling up. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other. Her legs were getting tired, but no one had even offered her a seat. Then she noticed something else. A couple walked in white, well-dressed, probably in their 50s. The second they stepped through the doors, Linda, the same manager who told Maya to wait, rushed over with a big smile. "Good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. Thomas," she said, voice full of warmth. "Let me take you straight to the VIP desk." Maya watched them walk right past her. No waiting, no questions asked. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. She had handed in all her documents, waited for over half an hour, and was still being treated like a problem. Meanwhile, others were welcomed like old friends. The worst part? No one seemed to care. No one asked why she was standing there alone. No one wondered why her check hadn't been processed. She was just a quiet girl in the corner, being quietly judged by strangers. While her confidence slowly faded with every tick of the clock on the wall, time kept crawling. Maya had been standing for what felt like forever, and still, no one called her name. No one came over to explain what was going on with her check. She glanced around the bank again. Everything looked the same, clean, polished, professional. But to her, it now felt cold and unfriendly. Her legs were starting to ache. And the more she waited, the more invisible she felt. She began to notice the little things, like how the security guard kept glancing at her but never smiled, or how people kept walking in and being helped right away, while she was still standing there like she didn't exist. A young man with a thick accent stepped up to the counter. He looked unsure, but polite, holding a stack of paperwork. Linda didn't even let him finish speaking before she waved him off, telling him the system was down and it would take too long to process. He left looking confused and disappointed, but just moments later, a white couple entered with similar paperwork. Linda practically beamed at them, calling them sweetheart and sir as she led them straight to the front. She even offered them coffee. Maya felt a tightness in her chest. It was obvious now. This wasn't just slow service. It wasn't a busy day. People were being treated differently. And it wasn't subtle. She looked down at her shoes, then at her hands, trying to stay calm. Her mom always told her to stay focused and not let emotions take over in hard situations. But this wasn't just hard, it was unfair. It was humiliating. She had done everything right. She had earned that scholarship. She had brought all the paperwork. She had waited patiently, without complaint. But still, she was being treated like she didn't belong. Then, without warning, she heard Linda's voice again, this time speaking to the security guard. "Keep an eye on her," she said quietly, but clearly enough. "Make sure she doesn't try to leave." Maya froze. Her heart jumped. She wasn't even allowed to go. She had no phone, no contact with her mom, and now they were watching her, like she was a threat. She blinked hard, willing herself not to cry. She didn't want to give them that satisfaction, but inside, something was breaking. This wasn't just about a check anymore. This was about how they saw her, and she knew exactly why.